Welcome back to Lit versus Genre, everyone. This is Steve,
This is
and this is
Jeff.
Jeff, and we're here
Well,
to talk
this is
about
Jeff.
two and three. Now we got into episode one, and Jeff, you started talking about how you responded more to episodes two and three. I know I texted you when story time started happening. I think my exact text was, "I can't believe we're getting story time." So obviously, like that was one of the things that you were gonna like more, and I was going to like less. But that's why we're here, right? We're here to fight with each other eternally until the end of time, and hopefully, some of our viewers enjoy that. So tell me more about episode two when you got here. What did you like? What seemed to improve things in this episode for you?
I'll go ahead and sort of lump two and three together to a degree. This is where I started to see changes that actually made some sort of sense to me. Like that it was a change that was enjoyable, or I saw as an alternate way to fit things together, and I could see more of a sense of where the writers were trying to take the show. It almost felt to me like the first episode was just an episode that they felt they had to just kind of get through and do the things, and now we get to kind of like write the show the way we want, and do these characters doing stuff. So for me, an example of this would be they take something from the books, but they place it somewhere else. So obviously, in the story, Moraine gives this whole speech to the townsfolk about the Netherin and who they are and all that. And that's part of the reason, obviously there's a contingent of people that don't trust her. There's those that do trust her for saving their lives. And it makes sense, about, why people are reacting the way. We lose all that, of course, in episode one in the show. But at the least, we do get, the kids, I'm going to refer to them as kids, even though they're in their 20s, singing this song, which makes sense, and then her giving this speech about where they're from, what happened. And that to me, that was the first time I felt like the showrunners were going, here you go, Wheel of Time fans. Here's something for you. Don't get me wrong, I
We'll throw
feel
some
that,
story
the
time at
Trollocs
you.
might
That'll
have.
shut him up. That'll shut him up. Just some
Yeah,
story
right.
time.
Like, yeah, here's some story time. I don't think the story time needed to be quite as long as it was. I was surprised that it then kept going. I think it could have been truncated a little bit, but just the feel of it, that is what the books felt like. Of you've got these people that know something, but there's more to it, and Moraine is there to tell them about that, and they're getting to experience the world more. It's moving from that small town to big city, discovering the world, that sort of thing. And so that feel was so nice to experience. I am glad that I kept watching and I didn't stop after episode one, so I could feel that kind of page to screen moment. So many other things had just been so very different than the original. I couldn't nail down that sensation for the most part when watching episode one. But in episode two, it actually felt like I was watching the Wheel of Time, and that was pretty beautiful.
Mhm. I will say I'm never a super big fan of story time, but like I liked that placement better than in the books. I was That was sort of strange and awkward that they come with pitchforks for her or something, and she's like, let me just tell you the story," and then like everybody else sneaks out the back. Like it's like kind of. I thought it was weird in the book. Here, yeah, this is a downtime. Like it does make more sense to tell a story during a downtime than during,
Yeah.
I don't know, super intense. We need to get out of here time.
In that moment, I was like, "Oh, you can make a good choice, writers. Okay, okay, maybe you have some idea of what you're doing
Okay,
here."
well,
So that
talking about good choices, I have another one that I'm gonna argue
yeah,
is a good choice. So we get to
go for it.
the fairy thing and the notorious whirlpool, which is another effect that like I was like I don't know about that effect. But this time I'm like, oh, well, now I am scared of Moiraine, and I'm happy about it. Where in the books I was like, no, I mean she's not scary. She always says everything right. She always does everything right. She's always perfectly reasonable. She makes the exact choice I would. And even in this one, I think they balance that better. I mean, she still makes the choice that I probably would, but it just stacks the consequences for this guy,
Right.
the ferryman, like a
Right.
lot more than the book did. And like, so it does make you go like, "Ee, Moraine," and like that's obviously what Robert Jordan wanted, but I just don't think he pulled it off in the book, and I think they pull it off here.
This is one I'm fine with. You know, I get like I get exactly what you're saying, which is that this allows Moraine to have that scary
Yeah,
quality for sure. It gives a reason for Rand to blow up. You
yeah,
know, so on and so forth. It makes, her seem potentially untrustworthy, that she'll do
hmm,
what she needs to do
yeah,
to get the job done, right? Um, which I like. I mean, yeah, that to me further emphasizes the character she already was in the stories.
yeah.
So yeah, go for that. Um, and again, unlike say the way they handled, Perrin's wife, there wasn't. They dealt with the fallout of that. They dealt with the boys then questioning her more, and we got to see what happened because of that in a logical way. So
Hmm.
yeah, no, there's no argument for me there. Um, I did we need all the Trollocs on the other side of the bridge? Now it's so funny. I'm so more thinking about costs of stuff now. I'm like, oh, did you need to spend your money that way? Maybe there could be something
Hmm.
else. I mean, I do miss the Drakkar a lot. I would have had the battle be shorter so we could have the vampire bat thing flying around chasing them, just to show that it's not that the creatures of the Dark One aren't just, Trollocs and then a fade. We've also said nothing about fades. So, like, we're just not getting any of that sort of interesting, cool.
You
Again, to
mean
me, it just sort of feels generic.
you and I have said nothing about phase? I mean, they talk about
No, 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 no.
phase.
I mean, in the story, like, we don't have them talking a great deal about what the eyeless can do.
Hmm.
We're not really getting many encounters with the eyeless like we did in the book, and we're losing the Drakkar. So, like, I'm just saying that the reason I mention it is because with the whirlwind, you get all these Trollocs piling on that other side of the bridge, right? Which is in some ways a cool scene. But now that we've talked more about the money and where they're spending it, I'm just saying I wish they had spent their money on a Drakkar instead and some time to talk about the Fades, just to get some more world building. Because right now, again, this isn't feeling super unique. Like one of the things that's so cool about the Wheel of Time is the backstories, history. I know they've got these separate animated things, which I need to like find where those are
Oh my
located.
goodness.
But just
I've
having a
forgotten to watch
little
those.
bit more about the Dark One's creatures would be cool, I think.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, it'd be cool. I mean, as far as them being on the other side, what's effective about that is that
because it
like
shows why they're
the dude is heading back towards that. Like if there was
true.
nothing on the other side and he just jumps in to go back, it doesn't sell you quite as much this dude's
Why Moiraine's doing
desperation
this?
as that does.
Yeah,
Like he is literally swimming back towards a whole huge army of monsters. And that just makes your heart go out for that guy. Whereas like in the book, that guy's like a
it does.
creep. That guy like sucks and you don't care about him at all. And like
Yeah,
so I
I'll
think
give that
that's where you
away.
gain from that, and I think it's strong.
You do, you do, you do. I mean, I wish they had just had the money for both, right? Like, fine. I was just thinking in my head,
Yeah.
like, about trading, or I feel like you could have
I think the
some of
thing that's
them
hard with
there, like
Manbat is he can fly, and so like they kind of use the whole fog thing to sort of plot Manbat away and get
they
Manbat
would do
off our
that
trail,
here.
but like
Yeah,
there's a whole lot more than you got to do there. So I mean, I kind of get that. I think Manbat will
I
show
do.
up again. I mean, he doesn't show up ever again in book one. Well, no, that's
No,
not true. There's some at the very end battle that we
I
teleport
hear you.
into.
No,
There's a couple
I'm with
Manbats.
you. I see your point that it does that shot of him going back with the Trollocs on the other side is powerful, and
Yeah.
you do feel for him. I like that shot and choice overall. I guess I'm just being greedy, and I just want, I just
Yeah.
want that. But yeah, I'm with you that if there was the Drakkar, then we do need to do the mist to get
Mhm.
rid of it. And again, that's the trade-off. We've now seen Moraine use like all this magic, right? And
Yeah.
so now, before the whirlpool, the mist, those were a big deal because we hadn't
Mhm.
seen her really do any magic yet. So they're like,
Right.
all right, yeah. Overall, that was not a large complaint for me. Overall I thought that did work too. So I'm with you. Probably spent way more time talking about that part, but those were just I'm actually glad we did though, because it does showcase differences and rational reasons why those differences took place,
Mm,
which I'm for. Like,
yeah.
yeah, like I get it. You know, you can't do that. We don't have time for the mist scene as well. Okay, we don't necessarily need that for the story. I would just like at some point when they're sitting by the fire for them to, if they don't know what Trollocs are, which is weird, for them to be like, what's that cloak thing that's following them?
Mm.
Like, it's sort of odd that that's not being discussed. But
Man, I
anyway,
feel like Moiraine says something, and maybe I'll search through it and try and put it in here, but I feel like
she
she
says
says
the
something
islets,
about fades. Yeah.
but not to them. It's mainly the dark friend in episode 3 who's like, you can't outrun an eyeless. You know, that sort of
Mm,
idea.
hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's just sort of odd to me that, we're not getting much about them. So, I'm just trying to imagine myself as a non-reader, so you got these big beasts, and then it seems like something's controlling them that no one's talking about too much. I mean,
Yeah,
she
but you
mentions that a
see
couple
them,
times.
you get lots of ominous shots about them, which is telling you
You
they're in
do.
charge here,
Yeah,
and I think those are pretty effective to let me know that these are worse.
they're in charge.
Yeah.
There's just so much cool, like, history there that would make them so much scarier to, like, talk about how they can, like, go through shadows and just, I don't know. It just feels
Yeah,
like a
we
missed
gotta talk
opportunity to me.
about
But
it. I don't
anyway,
know. This is a place where I think like a TV is a different medium than a book, and I don't want to hear people just kind of talking about
it doesn't have to be that
things.
long. It would just be like a couple seconds. But anyway,
Yeah.
what other these are like little nitpicky things that aren't hugely important for the show. What about other big things in episode 2?
Right, so episode two. So after that, we get to. I don't know if you were upset, but there was no like tree stump Hilton that they go into. Though I was like confused about
They
what this
do.
structure was that they were at. Like it
What
was
was
some
that
rock
thing?
thing.
Just the rock with a door in
It
it,
had a door.
weirdly.
Yeah.
There's not a door. What
There
now?
might have been a cast off line that I missed where somebody said something like this was some structure that was already there or
I
something,
don't
but I was like,
remember.
what's this like perfectly little rectangle cut
It
into
was
this
so,
rock?
and then they never walked through it. You never watched them walk through. I'm like, why aren't they
Mm.
like going back in? And then like Rand goes outside to be by the horse to be alone. It's just weird. Um, yeah, and Rand also doesn't watch like the Aes Sedai talk to Egwene about stuff, which was weird. He's just sort of outside. I don't know. It just like sort of little choices like that that are just
Yeah, I thought
not
that
quite
was
sure.
fine. I think that scene kind of works more better as between Moraine and Rand, but like in the book, Rand's the POV character. So like you literally can't have it without
True.
Rand sitting there
Yeah.
watching it. Whereas I'm like, what's he really
Yeah.
contributing to this? In the book, it was only contributing to my own confusion. So like I was like, this scene is really just between the two of them, and that's fine.
I mean, I don't necessarily mind it. So yeah. But anyway, the big things that happen after that would be questioners, White Cloaks, Shadar Logoth, stuff like that. So let's dig in. The next one is the White Cloaks, because they encounter them on the road, right?
Let me say like one
Talk to me
thing
about.
that I did like. You talked a little bit about worry about not there not being a Thom because there not being like a comedic element or a lightness to it. Which there were a couple lines that I like really liked, like Matt's like she can throw fireballs. I'm going with her. Line like I dig it. I'm like that's a good line. I like it. It's kind of in Matt's character. It's not like one of these meta jokes which just seem endemic to like every movie ever. It's like an in-character joke that makes sense in the world. And
Mhm.
so like I like that and I have remarked over there does seem to be a lot of Perrin crying, but beyond that it hasn't felt like just like
Yeah.
heavy, dirge like, sort of tone. Like I feel like it's felt not
Yeah.
light, but like it hasn't felt like joyless. And
It felt
definitely
appropriate.
that white
No,
cloak guy is like a joy. The Inquisitor
yes.
guy is an
Yes.
absolute joy.
No, completely. To talk about that scene though, that's the scene where Rand blows up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was just sort of strange because of the carryover last episode of how like one of the dragon, everyone's coming with me. We're all on horses. We're riding away. And then the weird voiceover about the wheel of time turning in the end of episode one. So we're given this just like totally, just slammed together. You're now on an adventure together. So then we're left with that now, and so it's just sort of weird to me when he blows up because, yeah, the guy died, but how are you feeling about following her anyway? And like I said, the Rand actor, I have no faith. I mean,
I had
maybe
fun
like
with him.
Schwarzenegger.
I thought he was fine, and like again, I think this was the exact moment that I was like, oh my gosh, I like Rand in this
When he yells at them.
television show where I hate him in the book, like just
Well,
do
did you hate
not
him or
like
just
him
not
at
care
all.
about him?
Huh?
Did you hate him or did you just not care about him? Well, you hated that he was so wishy-washy about
Yeah,
Egwene.
I just a wet log. You know, I guess it's like maybe hard to hate a wet log, but if that's my main protagonist POV character, I am gonna hate that he's a wet log. I want there to be something there, and in this, I'm like, I understand why the dude's mad. The dude is stuck with the chick who rejected him. Stuck like
Yeah, well,
being
it was
chased by crazy monsters with the chick who rejected you, like when you just want to be like home. And I know like in book Rand just wants to be home too, but like this guy's mad about it, and I'm like, yeah, why wasn't in book Rand ever like just freaking mad about it, like I
what you're
kind of
saying on
liked him.
paper.
I was like, oh, I like this dude. He's actually emoting here about this situation in a way that I can relate to.
I mean, on paper, what you're saying, I agree with. Like it sounds good. Like all I want to do is be at home. I love this girl. She won't be with me because of this new made up wisdom that wisdoms can't have kids and stuff. But okay, whatever. So and then he's being chased by everything. I just didn't feel any of that. Like the scenes between him and Egwene. Like I said, Egwene, I felt something from her, from him a little bit. The main time I felt something from him was in the previous episode where they're on the outcropping and he talks about
Yeah,
like what he thinks about.
yeah.
But like I felt like I was watching, high school auditions with him, like,
Alright.
yelling about being angry and stuff. So it was just, don't get me wrong, I loved the Matt line after it. Matt was great. Um, I mean, maybe that's a little too harsh. There's good high school actors, so there's good high school
Yeah,
actors.
I didn't have a
But yeah,
problem with the
I'm
dude.
just I'm just not connected to Rand at all, and so it
Hmm.
just didn't feel like they built up that nuance of pressure from him much or effectively for them me to then believe his outburst at that point. As you're saying, I like the idea of the outburst at that point. They didn't sell me on it, and then it was ridiculous that she left them, right? Um, you know, sure. At least we see later Lan sitting there watching to make
Yeah.
sure they actually
Right,
come.
right, right, right.
But that's like she talks about not having patience. Like she has tons of patience as a character. Like
Yeah, but I mean, she's
she's a
not.
very, very
Again,
different
this
character.
is. I guess she has to tell the truth or something. I didn't know this in the first book, by the way. Like, this is a weird extra thing that I'm only learning about because of the show. Are these oaths that I like? Everybody hates Aes Sedai because they're liars when they literally cannot tell a lie. Like I'm getting the impression like that it's like physically impossible. Like, is there something magicy going on with these oaths that they like straight up just can't do it? Like RoboCop can't like defy the law or whatever. Like they can't tell a lie.
Yes. Now that is how it works. And yeah, I mean, I like that they go through the O's here.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and
That's
so
important
her saying I
information. I
don't.
think you do need to front end that a little
Yeah,
bit.
her saying like I don't. Doesn't she's like I don't care about you anymore or something like that. Like I don't know. As she leaves them, she says something that does seem strange if she can't lie.
Hmm.
So again, just like a little odd moment.
I mean,
I
maybe she
do
did
just
say
wonder
something
about
about
how
patience.
people.
I'll put it in here, but maybe it was I've lost my patience with you or something, which is could be absolutely true or whatever.
Go where you will then. See, how come I don't believe you'd actually let me do that?
I've run out of patience and time.
That could be true. I mean, that's not again how she acts in the books, but it could be true. Um, so yeah, I mean, I do just wonder. Yeah, I'm just wondering how audience members are going to connect with these moments. Just because to me, I feel like the acting is weak in these scenes. I feel like the writing isn't that great in terms of like the actual words they're saying in a lot of cases. And so I'm just wondering how compelling, the average viewer that
Hmm.
Amazon is trying to, grab will be with this. I
Well,
think
maybe
there's
when you go
some
through the future ones, tell me like a like an acting moment to call up or like a specific line because I will say for this viewer, I care more about Rand than I ever have reading the
right
first book. And when he burst in that
for
outburst, I was
sure.
like, I totally get it, dude. This like fucking sucks. I like would not want
Right.
to be in this situation. I would demand answers as well, take that agency, which I feel like the boys don't do in the book at all. Like I was
Right.
with it.
Again, I'm with the idea of it for sure. It just didn't land for me.
Yeah.
But I do think the scene between the White Cloaks and their party was very compelling.
Mm.
That was another moment that I was like, I wasn't watching the book Wheel of Time. I was watching just the world of Wheel of
Yeah.
Time, and I was into it. I was like, oh, cool. I loved how he was checking her fingers to see if she like, had tan lines where a ring would
Mm-hmm.
be. Like that was great. That was
Mm-hmm.
great. I love the, questioners like putting down the other white cloaks basically and saying that they've got, a higher purpose and stuff like that. Um, that was all cool to me. So again, I think we're both on the same page that we enjoyed that actor who's playing the questioner. There is a delight to his and his role that he plays, and his belief seems very strong. The costumes, yeah, I
Yeah, they're
don't get what
still
they were trying to do
janky.
with
Yeah.
that. The whole thing about the questioners, they've got like a hook on them, like make something different. If it didn't seem like it was supposed to be that everyone with silver pauldrons, I think it's pauldron, is a questioner because they were sort of spread without, and then maybe it seemed like they were going with him, but it just like if you're gonna do some cool costuming thing, at least let us see the difference between someone who's the fighter white cloak versus the questioner white cloak or something. But in terms of the conversation and the way Moraine is answering questions, I enjoyed all of that. And even Land talking about that he's from the borderlands and keeping hands to yourself and stuff like that
Mm.
was all really cool to me. How
Mm.
did that play for you?
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I like anytime that dude's on screen. I don't know how much more that's going to be intertwined with the rest of the show. I don't, like I said at the end of episode three, we seem to take a hard left turn. So I'm really now not sure where it's going after feeling like everything that was happening I did know in these two episodes, like kind of precisely what was
Right,
happening
right. So
or
I,
what
I
was
think that
going to
scene all worked.
happen. Yeah.
Right. I think that all worked well. Shadar Logoth, kind of the next big set piece after that. Um, so Shadar Logoth, I thought looked really cool when they went in it. Especially the pullback shot of this huge
The
wall,
wall, yeah.
and then like the little break in the wall, and then
Yeah.
Land talking about the story how they walled themselves in, and then people had to break in.
Mm.
It like fit together the way it had looked, and then the way he talked about it. So I enjoyed all of that. What about you? How was Shadar
This
Logoth?
is I think my first miss of episode
Mm,
2. I wanted to stay no, the look I 100% agree. I think the town looks cool. I think everything about the set and the CGI there because I think it's partially CGI set obviously looks good and that all looks awesome. I would spend more time in Spooky Town. I just wasn't that spooked in the end by Spooky Town,
I
and I think
didn't
like
get a chance to be.
again, if you go like horror movie, you kind of mentioned like, oh, we could put more horror movie things in to like the first episode with Rand having to get back to town. I think here again, like get some like horror movie vibes in it, get some like, oh, we're in the dark, there are ghosts around, and we're like separated from everybody. And like I think there we could have slowed down the pace and like really sold a nice little like horror movie sequence culminating in the blobby ghost instead of just kind of going just Marines like you killed us and blobby ghost is here and we gotta run away from blobby ghost. Like that's where I think
Yeah.
like you want to go, oh yeah, like atmosphere could really be conveyed filmically um to sell that fantasy like type thing, maybe more so than special effects magic will sell that fantasy because
Very little.
it's easier to make
Yeah.
it look better. These horror movie tropes have been around forever, and it's easy just to be spooky and atmospheric. I didn't even feel like that interior set was that dark that they were like
Yeah.
in.
The show to me has very little ambiance. It has very
Yeah.
little feel that I'm in the world. Like we were talking about, Game of Thrones, absolutely. This, I mean, again, things look cool. Like Shadar Logoth look cool, and I think that's one reason why we're like, spend longer there. That
Yeah.
looks great. Um, and
How many
so I
ghosts?
liked the way the horse disintegrated. I thought
Yeah.
that was cool. But then yeah, it's just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
I actually agreed with the choice to not bother to have Trollocs in there.
Yeah.
I think we didn't. I don't think we necessarily needed that to
Yeah.
make it extra scary. I think they could have just made Shadar Logoth itself
Yep.
scary.
Hmm.
I of course was super sad about how Matt gets the knife. It's just so bizarre. Like there's this really beautiful scene with him and Perrin where he gives the knife and everything, right? And then he immediately gets a brand new knife,
Right.
like just in like the rubble, without a character, the other boys being there, anything. And it means it's not like a shared secret anymore. Um, I don't know. I feel like that's part of where they could have made the spookiness and the scariness of them, the boys experiencing
I
that.
I could see and I don't know like what you're dealing with time and future books. Like my thought was like I want to spend an episode in Spooky Town, Well, maybe not like an hour, but like spend some time in Spooky Town and then kind of culminate to this like set piece of chase, but like that the blobby ghost just felt like a thing that just is suddenly
Just
there. We suddenly just
dark and
run
bad.
away and we're separated, and there was no build up to that to make it really seem kind of scary. And also like the fact that it was just kind of like this slime on the ground, kind of more so than
Yeah.
like a blobby ghost. I don't. Again, that might have been budgetary, but like I don't know. It just kind of felt like an easily overcomable sudden obstacle. Like it just didn't feel like that scary or hard
Yeah,
to me.
we
You
just
just
sort of
run
like that.
away from it, and like everybody fairly easily got away from
Yeah, and
it.
they just all get away. I mean,
Yeah.
what you lose around the Trollocs is you lose more things dying. Like it gets what's cool
Mm,
is when you get to see big
could have
scary
eaten more
Trollocs that just destroyed
things.
your town,
Right.
then getting eaten by something else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. You know what I mean? So, maybe having a couple of Trollocs there could have been
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, it just who's gonna remember back? Like who's gonna be like, oh man, that Shadar Logoth episode,
Right, right.
that was intense, right?
Yeah.
Like no, it just sort of happened, right?
Yeah,
Like
just
again, I like the look of it. I thought it looked good overall. Overall, I thought it was pretty good. I like I said, the Matt scene, but yeah, it could have been more. And I think that's going to be the continued theme with this show is like it could have been better, even if it was different than Wheel of Time, even if they're doing their own thing. It doesn't have the gravitas. It doesn't have the
Mhm.
uh, it just doesn't have the weight that I think it needs to have in order to be a continued success with anybody over the long haul, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's renewed for 3 seasons. Isn't it last? We can talk about that at the end. But anyway, agreed. One other quick thing with Shadow Logoth, which I thought was interesting, is obviously we haven't talked much about this idea of Moiraine being injured.
Yeah.
And so Moiraine, not, being able to be involved in things. I liked it with the questioners of her being like, you wouldn't believe me if I told you, and then her talking about Trollocs. It was bizarre to me that the White Cloak was like, oh, though we stay away from them, you should get a sister. Look at that. They would never recommend an Aes Sedai
Right.
heal a wound like that. But anyway, but my point is just to more talk about, so Moiraine is out, and so it's more land making decisions. And so that's an interesting choice. Um, and it does seem like he makes a bad decision to take them to Shadar Logoth because, as you said, the shadow just appears. So it's like, oh, is just everybody dying every night in Shadar Logoth? Like, yeah, you should not have come here.
Yeah.
That is a terrible choice.
Mhm.
So I'm not bringing that up to say it's bad because then in the next, I think it's the next episode, Lan talks about how he abandoned them, and we get kind of more responsibility and agency from Lan, which
Mhm.
I think is kind of cool because like he's having to make choices instead of Moraine. So
Right.
I sort of like that. I mean, sort of don't, but
I'm gonna
I
say I
sort of
like
do.
everything about Moraine being injured. I think it's a
Yeah,
100% adding to the
yeah,
story. Puts a clock on for
yeah.
one, you know. So
No,
that's
no,
really
I like
cool.
it.
Just
No,
narratively, you know, you
that
have
said, I
this
like
like
the
ticking clock. We got to get her to someone, you know, or she's gonna die, and it just kind of
Nynaeve.
puts the stakes on. It yeah gives
Yeah,
Lan kind of more to do. He's not just taking orders. He's got to be in this weird, uncomfortable
make
position. We talked
choices.
about kind of this is more episode three, but it gives Nynaeve something to do with her precious herbs. For the first time, I was like, your herbs actually mean something. You're not just a delusional
I love
weirdo
that.
about your herbs.
I really did like that. So yeah, I think overall it's a change for the positive, and in my mind, like that's an example of a change which we then see the ramifications of, right?
Mm,
Like that's what I was saying before, right? Like if you're gonna do a change, at least follow it up with what would logically happen after it.
yeah.
And yeah, Moraine's out of the picture. Land's got to make some decisions. He might mess some stuff up, and then yeah, you need Nynaeve's help, right?
Yeah.
Cool, and that all flows from that decision. So that to me did give me more hope about the show of okay, you as writers, because we're learning about writers whenever we're, watching something, reading something, we're learning about like their skill set, what they can do, what they can achieve. And so seeing that, I was like, okay, so some of you there at least understand that if you make a change, then you want to follow it with things that are interesting and compelling. And so that little sort of mini arc of her being wounded, questioned, Lan having to make choices, Nynaeve then having a role, that all I think plays very, very nicely. And so if they can do more of those sorts of changes that they follow up effectively, that could be cool. Yeah.
All right.
Final thing though about Shadar Logoth real
Yeah.
fast is full props to my wife for noticing this. Well, she noticed the first one, I noticed the second. Uh, in Shadar Logoth, the horses all run away, but then when Lan and them come out, the horses are just there waiting. Like three horses are there
Mm.
waiting. So it's like, wait, what? And I guess maybe they were trying to show like a group of horses ran away,
I
and there
mean,
was another
Bella's a
group of horses.
genius, so
This is
it's
weird. They
totally
just came
totally
back and
fine
were
for
waiting for
me.
them. It is fine for you. Then earlier in the show, Nynaeve is in the water, and then she's cleaning, like she's scrubbing, the sacred space, and then she gets out of it, and she's like totally dry. So there are some
Mhm.
like edit things that are happening with this that I don't think they're so insanely egregious at this point that they're ruining anyone's experience of the show. But just something to continue to watch for. Hopefully, they'll be a little more mindful and catch those things more in the future. But that's pretty much episode two, I want to say. I think, yeah. And then so episode three, we get more into obviously people are split up now.
Yeah.
So feel free to dive into episode three.
Uh, ah, do I even like this in the original book that they're all split up? I'm not really sure. Like all these side quests. This is like one of the like kind of narrative things that I like wasn't super into in the book, and like definitely like Parent and Eggs is the most boring. If you don't have like Elias, I don't know, like am I
We're
fine
just
with
doing
there no
this.
being Elias? I kind of like we didn't talk about it in season two or episode two, but I kind of like the wolves just like coming up to him, like
Looking
just
at the
suddenly
licking its
they're wolves,
leg.
and he like the one wolf like comes up and licks his leg or whatever. I kind
I
of
was
was like
literally
okay with
joking.
that.
I was literally joking. He was sitting there, and I was like, "Oh, I bet a wolf shows up right now," as if like they like, of course they would do that, and
mm,
then it does, and I'm just like,
I think
just
that's
fine,
all right, but
fine.
that's still they're just like loping along until they run into the traveling people. So like that's
Yeah,
I
just kind
plot
of
I guess I
licking
didn't
his
spend a
wound.
ton of time with it, but I was super bored with that. Rand and
Yeah. Well, I don't understand
Max,
why he doesn't ask Moraine to heal him. Like they keep showing that he's got this wounded leg, right?
right?
Why? Like why? I mean, I get that he's, sad he killed his wife. Um, but does he
Yeah,
keep him because he feels he's got to
I wonder if they're
suffer?
saying
Like,
some like yeah, like some psychological reason, like he's being masochistic there or something. But like that's what I'm saying. My problem is with having these conflicts that are not between characters, that they're just internal. I don't like this like stories just being about internal psychology. It's
well,
just
you got
not
to do
super
something with it
compelling,
so I
right? Like,
understand.
oh, you have an explanation for why he's not doing an obvious thing that he should do,
Like,
but like, who
talk to
cares?
himself. Yeah, I was like, or have him talk to himself about it, or have someone notice he's limping and say, you should tell Murray like something.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, it's just weird. It's just the way they handled Perrin in this has just been odd overall to me.
mm,
Um, and especially too because previously, I think is again, we were sort of backtracking episode one, but previously they're all laying down, but then Egwene gets up and then Perrin's already up with a fire off somewhere else. I'm like, wait, I thought everyone was sleeping. Yet no, who
mm,
was sleeping then previously? So it's like they felt this need to show us the scene of Perrin with like the hurt leg, so then later they could show the wolf walking up and licking his hurt leg.
mm,
Um, and then later, obviously, we've just got them running and the wolves sort of hurting them is the idea, I guess.
right,
But it's so weird how Egwene figures that out. Like she's like, it's like they were telling us to come here.
mm,
And if they had maybe found the tracks and then turned around and the wolves were gone, then maybe you could say like, oh, it's they want us to come here, like something like that.
mm,
But they don't. It's their wolves are hurting them. They're like, it's like they want us to come here. And
yeah,
then after that, they notice they're not there anymore. So it's just poorly done to me, and it's boring, as you're saying.
yeah.
Like, who
I just
cares?
didn't really
We did
care.
get the Tinkers. We
Yeah.
did get the Tinkers.
Thought you'd be happy
Um,
with that. Two moments where like I was like not thrilled, but I thought you would be thrilled is that Nynaeve's tracking is still there, y'all. Don't fret about it. She's still a master tracker. Thank goodness. Or what would we have done? Like talking about
yeah,
things that
I
like
mean,
you're so mad that they changed, and then I'm like, but that we're keeping. Like, all right, okay.
well, I mean, she had to have a way to find him, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you want her to be separate, well, let's wrap up the Perrin and Grain arc, and then we can talk about kind of Nynaeve's arc, right?
Yeah, and so then the
Um,
Tinkers show up. You know how I feel about the Tinkers. I didn't really like them in the book either. I will say like the guy that Egg, like is supposed to kind of not really hook up with, but has googly eyes for. Already, like I felt like that was kind of a charismatic actor. He doesn't have much to say or to do, but I was like kind of liked him for some reason. I can't even
yep,
pinpoint what the line was, but I'm like I like this dude. Yeah.
I completely agree. No, to me, when he came on, I was like, okay. They made it sort of ridiculous with, the way that he's like, just repeat these words. And so that it was sort
Hmm.
of silly to me the way it was, as opposed to feeling like, oh, these people have this really cool, interesting culture. It'd be fun to learn more about, that they're just like steeped in this archaic tradition that actually makes no sense and the young tinker's making fun of.
Hmm.
Um, eh, then they're not actually dressed brightly. They
Hmm.
just seem sort of run down. So again, it's there, but it's not there like it is in the book. So it's like a half joy. It's like, oh, thanks, I guess, for putting them in there. And in terms of Egwene, I mean, apparently now that these kids have no problem just having sex, there's no like issues with, their society they're fine with it. So I'm sure Aram and her will be off in a car here soon,
Ah.
or like they'll just do it in the middle of the field because like Rand and her just like have post coitus just hanging out in the middle of an inn afterwards. Like people seem to have no concepts of their surroundings. So I'm sure
I
just
didn't know
Perrin
you
will
were
wake
so
up and
prudish, Jeff. I didn't know that you're
yeah,
so
the Grand
uptight.
will just be having sex
Oh,
there.
I can't
Well,
believe I forgot to ask you. how
Right.
would you rate Lan's ass? That should have been my main question for the
Lands
last
ass.
video. Like,
You mean when he's getting in the hot
yeah,
tub?
man, yeah.
For the
That's a 10
again
out of 10,
completely
baby. That's a
unnecessary.
10 out of 10 ass right there. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Here's what I'll say about that scene. Sure, you're not wrong,
Am I
but
wrong?
two, I did like that they didn't seem to do any sexual tension between Moraine and Lan. Like
Yeah.
I at least appreciated that it was more just like this is how we do. Like we
Yeah.
just bathe together. It's nice
I
they've
thought it
got
was
it. You can
cool.
heat it up. I was fine with that. It's cool. For them to be that way is fine to me. It's the idea that these like country folk that are usually more conservative are just going in. It's like you just had to shove in the sex, didn't you? But anyway, point here is that Aram, I like Tinkers. They got the Tinkers, they got the dogs. I didn't feel any of the magic of the tinkering people or the way of the leaf. Hopefully that will happen,
Yeah, we
and we'll
just
get
had
a
like
little bit
two
of
seconds with
philosophy.
them, you know.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
imagine
It's
there's
been
more
real quick
scenes
so
with them. I
far.
don't know why they would be there if we're not gonna have more scenes with them, you know.
Right. I'm thinking we will, and I'm hoping we get more into them. So that gave me some hope. In terms of the walkie, whatever. Nynaeve's arc. So Nynaeve gets stolen by a Trolloc, right? So that she's not there to argue because nobody else is going to argue with Moraine just stealing children, whatever, or young adults. Um, and then so Nynaeve finds him. So I feel like they had to have her tracking ability,
I
especially
know.
because she doesn't find him like in a town. You know what I mean? I mean, they
Hmm.
could have had her just listen to the wind, but she doesn't say. It's not like she's like, my dad was an expert tracker.
Right,
She
right,
just said, I told you you could ask, which I thought was cheeky and I liked.
right.
I enjoyed
All
their
right.
scenes together. Enjoyed her and Lan well enough.
Yeah, so yeah, I thought that storyline was fine. And then the last storyline, which is really the major one, I would say of the episode is the Matt Rand in this new random town. And we get Thom and we get a Darkfriend. You're
Yeah.
shaking your head in that way that you do. Let's talk about Thom first. I mean, did you like, Thom?
I guess in a similar way that while I'm not necessarily for Matt being a thief, I feel like they continue a through line with it that makes sense.
Hmm?
Um, this is not the portrayal of Thom I would have picked in any way, shape, or form, but I feel like they're consistent with it.
Yeah.
And I did like him going out to bury the Aiel. I mean, the timing, like, why didn't you do that before? But I did like that and how he was kind of
Well, he says
telling
something
Matt
like,
some
if you're
things about.
gonna steal from the body, then at least bury it.
Right, exactly. So I liked him teaching Matt the early lesson about having his coin purse, and then later being like, if you're going to steal. So it feels like the education, if you will, that Thom is giving Matt doesn't feel forced. It feels sort of very natural for their situations. Um, so I liked it well enough. Like that to me was a replacement. It's like we're not going to do what you would expect. Here's this alternate version, and I thought they did it well enough that I liked it. It was okay.
This is another example where you know how I feel? I like
You
this
hate Thom.
way better. I like this guy
Right.
way better than the guy in the book. I hate the dude in the book. I think he's like alternates between clownish and like incomprehensible in the book. And like this dude seemed cool. Like the thing he does with stealing his money or whatever is funny and cheeky and you like kind of like it. I like how Rand reacted to it, kind of like laughing at him, for
That was
having.
my favorite Red moment
Yeah.
right there. That was it. That point where he's like messing with Matt about it, I was
Yeah.
like, okay,
I
that
dug
was fun.
that idea. I dug his interaction later, so he's not just a jerk. You get this idea that like, yeah, that was like
Right.
cheekiness. This is kind of like, my like splinter training you in like in a way that's like kind of mean, kind of like, yeah. I just immediately like this guy 100 times more than I like the dude in the book.
Well, that's why you see me reacting the way I'm like
Yeah.
if I didn't like him, then I'd be up in arms. Like to me, again, if you're gonna replace, if you do it in a compelling way, okay. And I thought they did. And they really did a lot of interactions for it. I feel like this was another moment where they're saying, okay, fans, we know we didn't give you Thom up front, that you might love it. We're going to spend some time with Thom right now. We're going to see more about him in this first episode where we're meeting him. And I really appreciated that. I really enjoyed the scenes we got to have with him and then with him and Matt. And especially because I also enjoy Matt. And then it made sense when at the end, like they even set up the knife throwing. They even set up how like, Matt saying, as he would, I've survived Trollocs, I'm not going to die to you. And then he's like, you'd be, bleeding out before you even get to me, implying that I would throw this knife at you. And then at the end of the scene, he throws a knife to kill the Darkfriend. Very nicely set up. Like that it was good. It was good. And then because of the time they had spent together, I totally understood Rand being like, we're not going to follow you. Who are you? Like, I mean, he knows him from the inn, but he's not going to follow him. But then Matt being like, no, he's cool. He's cool,
Yeah.
basically. Like, that all worked because they had spent the time. So overall, I thought that was effective in terms of the way they introduced this new character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like we should, take stock of because what I keep seeing coming up over and over again is I think I agree with you. I have issues with pacing here. I think things are kind of happening too fast, though. I also don't want them to go interminably slow like they did in the book all the time. But a lot of
Sure.
the changes I am very for. Like
I
I
figured
am
you would be.
very for the how the egg and Rand dynamic plays out in this show. And I like it.
Right.
Again, I said I like Thom 100 times more. I like that 100 times more. I feel like I feel for Rand in that situation and I feel for Egg in that situation. I think like their reactions are kind of interesting and complex. Like Rand's kind of being like, trying to be understanding about this. Yeah, I know that you want to be wisdom, or I know now it's kind of shifted over to I know you want to be Aes Sedai rather than be with me, and I accept that, but I don't accept it. It's like this kind of like complex. I accept it, but I'm mad. And it's got like this nuance to it. It's got this like interesting thing to it where there was just like I just didn't even ever know what Rand wanted in the book. So I like that 100 times better. I like Thom 100 times better. I think Moiraine actually seems like intimidating and scary, what Jordan wanted to convince me of in the book, but he never succeeded in doing. I'm feeling that 100 times more. Um, I like Matt. At first, I thought I was not gonna like Matt. Like when he's playing like the dice game and he lost all his money at the beginning, I'm like, oh, this guy's just gonna be like a loser the whole time, who is really gonna annoy
Right.
me by how big a loser he is. But he didn't really turn into that. You kind of do get a sense like, oh, he can take care of his sisters, or at least like he has competence. He's not just a complete idiot who's gonna gamble away everything all the time. And so like he kind of won me over. And I like that better than the prankster persona in the book. So like all these things, and I would say Perrin is the only miss where like I don't even say I hate it more than the book. I would just say like you had to go for a change here. It didn't work, but at least you had to go for a change, and I don't fault you for trying to do it. But that one missed. But like all the other major characters for me like are improvements.
Right. No, like I said, I figured it would be, and that's what I said at the beginning. I feel like this show is written for people that maybe like fantasy, but didn't really like Wheel of Time.
Mm.
And that's who this show is like catered to. Like people that want to watch a fantasy show, but maybe bounced off Wheel of Time or aren't into the world building, the philosophies, the that. And yeah, so their changes seem very much in line for that.
Yeah.
But what I think is that they're not doing those changes well enough. And like I said, the show just doesn't have the ambiance uh, of, others we've seen. Even Witcher, to a degree, I would say had more of a feel to it that I just question, is this show going to succeed?
Yeah.
That is what I am very, very
Well, to
curious
make
to
our
discover.
argument a little bit more pointed, I think what I would
Yeah.
say to you is that when they I think your instinct is to kind of go, ooh, changes, and to react very much to changes and be like,
Yeah.
this is bad. That this is a change. I don't like the show and they're changing it. And I think those two things are slightly opposite things. Like, I don't think the changes are bad. I would 100% agree with you that I don't think the ambiance is there. I don't think the look is there. I also need some other narrative hook in to keep me coming, but I mean that's a problem inherited directly from the book because like we're just wandering
True.
around, kind of now at
I,
this point and we don't have like a
I'm against
clear
fixing problems.
yeah, we don't have
Yeah.
that clear problem that we're trying to solve, but that's not I wish they would improve that from the book, but they haven't improved that. I wouldn't argue. I think the parent change is a miss, but I don't think what you're reacting to badly is the changes. I think if they made all these other changes and then all this other stuff also really flew, that you might be into it.
Maybe. I mean, so again, and this kind of gets back to the what is an adaptation, what's okay.
Yeah.
And we didn't quite get to finish the arc in that other town, which I would like to, but we're getting an interesting conversation going on with this track.
Yeah.
So to me, the trouble with changes is that since if you're coming up with something just from nothing, right? That's one act. But if you've already got something in existence, to me, yeah, change needs to be better than what's already there. Because otherwise you could have just done what was already there.
And I think these
So
changes
for the most
are, I've
part,
kind of gone
yeah.
through every single one that I really like and said why I think it's better.
Right, but I mean, those are just one of like, I mean, I need to go back and count like a couple hundred changes that they've made. Like, really, to me, the show is less the book than not. Like, the show is more made up stuff than it is the actual book, which to me is just like almost mind blowing. So there's that to kind of contend with. In terms of the big beat changes, I don't necessarily disagree. As I've said, I like what they've done with Moiraine getting hurt to then give Lan greater choices to have Nynaeve be relevant. I think that's very effective. I like them bringing in the White Cloaks earlier and us getting to see them as more of a big bad. And I'm in complete agreement. The beauty of the reason that book one, I think, follows Rand so much is because Jordan was probably worried that if he bounced around to a bunch of different places and stuff, it would be too confusing. But that works really well in a visual medium, right? So the rest of the books bounce around. So they could have injected that more in this narrative, like by giving us the White Cloak scene early without any of, the Scooby Gang, and then later, us see them again. So I like those changes. Those to me seem in line with let's maximize what we can do with the story. We've already talked about the Perrin one. For the Egg and Rand one, we've talked before about how I like that it's a little bit different. I sort of like the wishy-washy nature, but I figured that they would do this in some way, that they would make their relationship clear
Hmm.
right from the get-go
Yeah.
so people have something to grab onto. And again, on paper, this idea of Rand wants to settle down and have kids. Egg was on that track, but then Nynaeve said, hey, maybe you can listen to the wind. And for whatever reason, wisdoms aren't allowed to have families. So boom, now they're in conflict with each other. And so that is Egwene's new version of making a choice, because what made Egwene so awesome in the books
Yeah.
is that she just chooses to go on this adventure.
Mhm.
They're all the boys are complaining about being on an adventure. She
Right.
wants to go on the adventure. So I like that they are giving her an alternate form of agency of I want to be a wisdom, and then as you said, transferring that to I want to be an Aes Sedai. So that all works for me. Again, on a conceptual standpoint, and I get why they would do it. For me, though, unfortunately, the actors aren't good enough
Mhm.
for me to pull it off on the Rand side, and the writing of it and the way it's shot hasn't been good enough for me to sort of feel those emotions, which I just find unfortunate. Conversely, I feel like with Lan and Nynaeve talking to each other, those moments like work for me. I feel like a spark
Yeah.
there between them.
But I guess the
So
point I'm trying to make that's different than a change. that the change is bad. I mean, you can always argue with how well you're pulling something off
Sure.
on like a kind of, stylistic or acting or, I guess exact lines level. And I don't know, I would have to look back. I didn't find anything that pulled me out of it in terms of acting or the particular lines. I found the conflict believable. I believed both of them. I understood, and for the first time in all my Wheel of Time experience, gave a crap about Rand, which I said first video
Sure.
just blew my mind because I've never cared about him one little bit. And so, like, I think, and then you talk about like everything's changed. I guess what I'm having trouble with is I can't find a change that's not fairly superficial that I really don't think is working better, except perhaps the Perrin one.
Um, so I mean, just all the little things add up to create a different experience
Mm-hmm.
for it. And again, the world just doesn't feel as rich with all the changes that have been made. And some of them are just odd, like having the Aes Sedai who gave the foretelling be blind, just because that's a trope, not because that is from the books or anything. So there's just these like weird changes. Well, to me, there's like a whole bunch of different changes. There's changes that they're doing for a reason that can work. There's changes that they try and don't work. There's changes that seem to have no reason. So like, there's just, I'm just saying there's a lot of changes. That's all.
All
Before we
right.
get into like sort of our final thoughts on like the show, like will it succeed? I do get what you're asking. Like what's the like big change that is problematic
Right.
for me as someone that views sort of character logic and storytelling, characters doing what I feel they would do based on the information that I have access to. Due to many of the changes, the characters to me behave in unbelievable ways. And so that then takes me out of the immersion. And many of them are changes that happen or cuts that have happened that they felt they didn't have, like time for, like Perrin's friends never asking him about his
Mm-hmm.
wife, about the, people of the town not bothering to put up any sort of sync about them, leaving or just like being okay with them going. And just moments like that just hit in a very sort of odd way, like Moiraine randomly being on a hilltop, watching them. There's just sort of these
See, these to me don't
unbelievable
these
moments.
don't sound like changes. These just sound like botched execution things,
Yeah, well, I mean, they are
which I'm
changes because
on
Moraine
board
was never
with.
there.
I don't think, again, just trying to find the consensus between us. Like
Right.
you cast everything in the frame of a change, and I don't like this change. And then like, yeah, the family members should have said
Well,
something. If you didn't spend 8 years on the battle, you would have had time for the scene of the family members actually saying something. But that doesn't feel like like a change from the book. It's almost like if you say book good, this thing they did bad, therefore not book. It's a change, but I don't think that's a
no, I
change. I
agree.
think that's just
That
like you just
particular
didn't
one is,
execute that particular
I did
moment
say,
very well.
I did say change or cut, right? So like it's choosing what to show and what not. So that particular one is just less time spent on that moment. Sure. But part of that change was then her immediately healing Tam and then them immediately leaving, as opposed to Tam having that conversation. So that it's tied to
And
it.
I think that change
Moraine
is
watching him
good.
capture guys is a total change. Perrin having a wife who then he kills is a total change.
Sure.
Matt having these daughters that he's protecting from abusive family is a total change, right?
I'm
So
okay
there
with
are
that.
lots of changes that that are happening throughout this. Like the Lantern Festival. Like, I mean, as I said, there are more things in this show that are different than are the actual book. And some of them I think work, and some of them don't, and some of them who knows why they like why make her eyes white just because in this story. Um, and so I do wonder, if they continue to stray so very far from the source material, will they be able to capture what made the source material work? I think they're doing some things that do work and they can capture people. But before we get into our final predictions, I do like what you're doing. Like, let's find the thing, and I do agree there's a difference between altering something versus how long we spend on
Yeah.
something. And I completely agree. Less time on the fight,
Yeah.
more time for the
Yeah.
goodbye, and that could have actually been an emotional
Right,
hit
right.
at the end. I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah.
But real quick, just to finish up the Rand arc in the new town. I know we're backtracking here, but I think it's important because you get this whole Darkfriend character
Sure.
that we actually spend a lot of time with,
Yeah.
screen time wise, which I think was a good choice.
Yeah.
I think this is an example of slowing things down, spending longer in certain areas. I was, of course, disappointed that we're not going to any of the towns yet that we actually go to. We're not getting any of that. Like I'm in an inn and we haven't even gotten to meet Min, which is weird. So, there's a lot of stuff we're losing. I expected to lose some of it, but for it to be just this random mining town is kind of like, eh. But I felt they did sell me on the Dark Friends motivation
Mm.
of, they mine this dirt and then you're covered in the dirt and then you just never do anything with your life.
Mm.
I felt that. And I felt her line when she was like, the wheel just brings constant suffering and you could break that. You could
Mm.
stop that.
Mm.
I really like that line. I thought it gave a dark friend a more understandable reason for believing what they're being as opposed to just being like bad dark friends I want eternal life
Yeah.
kind of thing. So that to me, is improvement. That's what I mean to say that yeah, someone can come in if they're a solid writer, if they can execute well and make changes that are good. And I think there are some of those in the show. And I suppose, if you make enough changes, someone's got to be good, right?
Mm.
But that one I thought was effective. The time we spent with her. I enjoyed seeing Rand kind of relaxing too. I like that. I thought it was interesting the way he breaks through. So that is going to become the moment as opposed to him calling lightning down
Right.
would be my expectation. So I feel like they did some things with that scene that are useful for plot progression, but I'm seeing maybe some notes from Steve. What were your thoughts
I
about the
mean
Dark
that
Friend aspect?
I didn't get that in the book. I didn't get it in the show.
Mm.
Like I think this is again some misguided reveal mystery thing where it's just like he just hulks out on this door and you're like she just said it's impossible to
It's a
go
cheat for
through but you
sure.
just became it's not even clear that that would be magic related or that would be one power related. Like it's so
The strands. Like now that we can see magic, now that all of us can see magic, if he's
right,
using magic,
right.
we should be seeing some strands with
Yeah,
this.
but I didn't like that in the book either, so I can't say that that's a change for the
Well, we didn't get the
worse.
opportunity. We didn't get the opportunity for Bella, right? Because as we talked about in the last callback, when they're doing sort of the final thoughts of the end book, and this is spoilers for someone who hasn't read the book. Well, I'm not going to get too much in, but they talk about how, the one power had been used on Bella by one of them, right?
Hmm.
I'm trying to say relatively spoiler free.
Right.
And so we don't get that. So we have to get some scene of somebody doing something that seems outside the norm to like set the stage of who the dragon might be, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. No, he could just be revealed.
I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah, I mean, it could just be revealed.
if
It
you're
could just be when he
obsessed with
does something
something
really
like,
big.
ooh, something was set up, like Bella was healed, like if you, and I think Jordan is very obsessed with that of going, like, let me make sure that back in the background we have a story time now so I can show you how Bella was healed and it all fits together like a puzzle. I don't care about that. He could just do whatever at the end
It
and
could just be later that
yeah,
somebody does it.
yeah.
It does seem strange because in the trailers it seemed like they were really pushing the mystery,
Yeah,
and here
they're
it
not. They don't seem to give a crap
feels like
about
they're
it.
not. Like it's weird because they do still say that it could be Egwene, but then and she says that she sees four people in her dream, so not five.
Mm,
The
yeah,
the
cutting
dark
her
friend
name
does.
out of it, yeah. Uh,
Yeah. Did you like the time? It seemed like you nodded when I said the time spent with Dark Friend. I felt
oh
was,
yeah, yeah.
right.
I like that. I think it's another solid change. The Dark Friends are just kind of nothing in. I mean, they're sort of funny, like what we talked about in the book, but like they're not
Right.
characters. They're not like someone that you
No,
actually
not
get
not in
to
book one.
have a
Yeah.
thing with. And I like how she's kind of flirty with both of them, and you know, you get this like sexual attention, and then you know, then she's like evil. Yeah, I dug it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of liked theirs was definitely the most compelling of the side stories. Uh,
Yeah, well, I mean, I did like the Nynaeve one a lot, so I feel like those both worked to a degree.
yeah, I thought that was all right. I wasn't super compelled by that one, but
Well, it would have been nice if maybe, I guess they really wanted to end with like getting to Logain, which we need to talk about as well, of
oh
course.
my goodness, right?
Um, but yeah, I mean, it did spend a little bit long. I could have used that time somewhere else, maybe. Yeah, I could agree. We didn't need quite as much with. I mean, I liked collecting the herbs, making the thing, trying it out, and stuff like that. I thought that all worked, but yeah, I don't think we maybe needed quite as many cutbacks to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but I was going to say what was weird to me though was the dark friend just talking about being a dark friend in the middle of town. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Okay.
that's just wild. Obviously, readers don't know that that would be wild because they don't know how people react to dark friends. I mean, admittedly, her talking about being a dark friend did get her killed.
Yeah.
So, in some ways, you'd be like, yeah, she talked about being a dark friend, and Tom just murdered her because she was a dark friend. So, in a way, they kind of saved that one, unlike the ridiculous sex in the main story of the end. But yeah, yeah,
Okay, so
main
let's wrap this up. Let's talk about Logain, I guess.
yeah,
I'm happy to
Logain and
see
then predict.
him. I'm happy he's here. This is enlivening the Lan
Yeah,
Moiraine Nynaeve storyline, and
yeah.
I guess like all this that we were seeing before that made us hypothesize that we were gonna start with Logain
Is
is
the
actually now going to happen with
yeah,
Moiraine with them because now these other Aes Sedai can just heal Moiraine up and we're good to go.
right.
Um,
We're good.
I don't have much to say about it. I'm for it. I thought their side quest story was a little boring, and now there's kind of something more that's gonna happen.
I love Logan as a character. I am super down to get more time with him. I didn't know if it was going to happen from just shots of his perspective and what's going on, but to have Moraine and crew there beside him, cool. As you were saying earlier, you like conflicts between characters. I would agree. Like this is set up to be very conflicted. Like Nynaeve is conflicted about Aes Sedai. Is she going to be on Logain's side? Are they going to get to interact at all? How is your continued interactions with Lan going to be? How is Moraine going to be considering Nynaeve did heal her? Is Nynaeve going to want to break off to find the crew, but Moraine for some reason needs to stay with the Logain crew? There's a lot of fun questions associated with it. So is it a change? Yeah. But I think it does create some fun elements. So I am in to watch the next episode to see that. Like, yeah, like show me what's up with that. Show me some Tinker stuff. Show me the Way of the Leaf, cool. And show me more time with Tom. So I would say all the three narratives that they've currently got going, I am intrigued by. So like I said, I am glad that I watched this far because I do want to see how each of those plays out. So yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds good, everybody. We will be
We got to
back
do,
here.
we got to do final thing
Oh,
though.
you got one
We got to
more?
do final thing.
All right.
We have just one other thing, which is, again, I feel we should say it now. How do we think this show is going to do? We've sort of hinted at that conversation, but not, finished out. Like, do you think season one is going to be a success and lead into season two and three well? Do you think it's going to die after season three? What do you
I
think?
mean, it's hard to predict out 3 seasons because plenty of shows have a rocky first season, and then hit their stride, and that's a lot more episodes of 3 seasons. I can totally see this getting way more compelling in season two and season three. And actually, I'll say it's kind of a breath of fresh air because I was kind of thinking that the style of a show being given enough chance to find its footing and then
Right,
becoming a really big show, a really successful show, was past. I thought like that wasn't something that was possible in the streaming landscape
right.
anymore. Like I know definitely, I feel that way
Just want
about
to one and
Buffy
done.
the Vampire Slayer needed some time to rev up. I feel like there's been lots of other shows. I mean, Star Trek The Next Generation, the first season is notoriously awful, like just some of the worst ever. But then that show becomes amazing after it revs up. I argue the same about Breaking Bad. I don't think the first season of Breaking Bad is very good, but it becomes amazing about halfway through season two. And I feel like back when there were network shows, this was allowed to happen to shows, you know. I think something broke at Firefly where it wasn't allowed to happen for Firefly, and like we've never been able to look back and have it happen again. So the fact that we know for sure we're getting three makes me feel like even if this first one doesn't catch fire, it's giving itself a chance to,
Yeah.
find its footing, get a little bit more adventurous, for me, maybe get a little more divorced from this like travel log first opening story and catch
Right.
on.
Yeah, I mean, book one, has that as, something that can stop people from reading it is that it is just this long travel log. And if you're not into that, yeah, it's going to be hard for you to get through that book. And I would agree. I think there is hope here. It's hard for me because part of me does, part of me was legit hate watching this show. So, part of me is like, it's all going to burn. But another part of me is that I have seen these moments that are good, and they're all learning, right? I mean, things are a learning experience. The showrunners are learning how to film a show. The actors are learning. That's why I brought up Schwarzenegger before. I thought, like, by the end of Schwarzenegger, I feel like he was a really good actor. You know what I mean? Because he got enough opportunities that I find him to be compelling. In later roles that are not just action. And I feel like these actors could grow in to their characters and could impress me and find their footing. So I am happy that it is getting the chance to breathe, the chance to hopefully succeed. I have plenty of doubts from what I've seen so far, but there have been some glimmers of hope. And I will say, no matter what, I hope that this is a really incredible moment for you know Jordan's wife, Harriet McDougal, I believe. And oh my god, like I want to make sure I was looking at it correctly. But when it comes to that, I hope that this is a cool thing. Yeah, Harriet McDougal, um, for her to get to see this work that she was such a big part of to go to the screen, and it's got to be really amazing as a creator to have that happen. And I would also hope that a show like this would make people curious about the world, and more people will get to experience the books and love them for either reasons I love them or other people love them, but just to experience more, fun, entertaining, and thought-provoking literature that I really feel, especially the later books of Wheel of Time are. So I think there is a lot of positive to come from this, but overall, I am very, very skeptical of how it will continue. I'm hoping they can keep it up, but I feel like they've flubbed a lot, so we'll see. We shall see.
All right, y'all. Well, we shall see indeed. We'll see you for the next episode next week. We will try to have it up as soon as possible. And please dislike and subscribe down below, y'all. We'd love to grow subscribers and hopefully
What
make
are your
more of these
thoughts?
in the future. So thank you all so much for joining us.
Okay. Thanks, Al.